everybody. I am joining you today with Lorna Hecht. I am Miriam Bellamy. We are both licensed marriage and family therapists. We both do neurofeedback with folks. We both also study something called Bowen Family Systems Theory, which gives us a very different look at life and relationships and the human species and lots of things, and the coronavirus and how each of us are handling it. Lorna and I had a great discussion getting ready for this, and I think it's going to be very helpful. So the name of the talk today, or this discussion, is Just the Facts, Ma'am, talking to your children about the coronavirus. So I first thought we'd start by just sort of talking about, how is this impacting your life?
Well, like everybody else, I'm in San Diego, California, and where it stands now is most non-essential businesses are closed, and they want groups of 10 people or less and social distancing. So, it's a big change in lifestyle. I think one of the things I'm most anxious about is not being able to go to my exercise classes. Not just to stay in shape, but just the routine of it, the social contact of it. It's very steadying. Mm-hmm. One of the funny things is I went to Dick's Sporting Goods yesterday. They've had a run on hand weights. So I was not the only one.
Exercising at home or getting ready to.
Well, I bought the weights.
Yeah.
That's like saying,
yeah, you did.
So, but my anxiety's up a good amount. And not for any particular reason. I'm in a low risk category. My husband and I are in low risk categories. Our children, of course, are. My mother, who is in a high risk category, is staying home. She's also very healthy. Financially, we'll be okay, certainly better than many people out there. So I have more to be grateful for than not. And yet, I feel it. I'm anxious. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much of that is generated within me and how much it is me catching it from media and family and friends. It's hard to sort that out.
Anxiety spreads like a virus, doesn't it?
Anxiety spreads like a virus.
I think it does. Yeah, so I'm anxious too. In our pre-discussion, we'll talk about sort of our differences of what we're anxious about. I think it's really fascinating, can be really helpful. You fall on the side of upset that people are at the folks who are sort of underreacting to this. I fall on the side of I'm pretty upset with the people who I feel are overreacting to this. So yeah, I think that'll be helpful. But yeah, so for me, clients are coming online for therapy sessions just fine. I've had a couple of cancellations. I'm doing everything online at home. We got plenty of food. We already had plenty of toilet paper. I had a couple of events scheduled that went kaput, which was upsetting and frustrating. My husband may be closing his store temporarily. So financially, that's going to be interesting. I think we're going to be fine too. But it's a little unnerving for sure. And my oldest is concerned. And so, yeah, talking today about anxious parents trying to calm their children.
Right. Can an anxious parent create a calm child? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't either. So you have a story, Lorna, about when your son was young, about the power going out.
Right. So sort of the theme today, from my perspective, is that people do better when they know what they're up against. That information is power, even if it's not pleasant information. And so a story that came to mind, my son was little. He must have been 4, 5 years old. The power went out in the house, and he immediately got himself quite worked up into a state. And I remember I got down, took him by the shoulders, and I looked at him. I said, "Ethan, let me tell you what this is." I don't know if he'll like me using his name. Let me tell you what this is. This is a crisis. That's what this is. It's a crisis. And it calmed him right down.
Wow.
So he's like, he didn't know what a crisis was, but he's like, this is a crisis. Okay.
Got it.
And then we proceeded to find flashlights and go over to the neighbor's house and sit with them. And he was fine from there on out. But I think that is a good example of knowledge is power.
Mm-hmm. And this is a crisis, right? However we define it, it is a crisis. And I think, many of us have been through crises before. And how do we, go ahead.
Yes, for sure. Nothing on a national level like this.
See, this is where I disagree.
No, I mean, thinking about how severe the virus will be, is certainly open for debate, but the reality changes that are being implemented across society, that's a crisis.
Yes. And yes.
That's a crisis. No question about it. And I think the closest parallel would be what my mother has told me is it reminds her of being in London during the war. Now, there's no bombs falling on anybody, heaven knows, but that level of societal involvement in one event.
So can you talk a little bit more then about sort of information? And when we were prepping, we were talking about secrets and Bowen family systems theory and secrets in the family. We protect the children, right? Secrets are all about usually protecting some family member. Can you talk about that?
Yes, I think that actually secrets are about protecting self from the upset in the other. When the secret is about the other, for example, if a family member were to have a terminal illness and family members may decide not to tell that person, then they are being denied the opportunity to make decisions for self, to think through, what's happening for self. They're put in this more infantile position, which ultimately I think raises anxiety. But it's done much more in the service of not disrupting self when it gets right down to it.
This reminds me of the material, if people haven't taken a look at it yet, that I've been sharing with the Scream-Free Parenting. I mean, this is something that Hal Runkle teaches about being responsible to our kids versus responsible for them, because when we're responsible for them, we take responsibility from them. But underlying that thinking is, if you're trying to control them, that's really about yourself, about that difficulty with self-regulation when people we love and care for are upset or afraid or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's all accurate. And I like the way you said that about the difference between responsibility for and responsibility to.
Yeah, which being responsible for self. Go ahead.
Well, one of the other things I've been thinking about a lot in terms of globally, but in terms of talking to children about what's going on, is that there's a big opportunity right now to consider the consistency or lack thereof through one's beliefs. They're talking about developing a vaccine, talking about testing. Where do people stand on vaccines in general, on the quote unquote Western medicine, or medical model? This is a really important time for people to get clear on their beliefs. And I think a very important time to do reading and research, which you said you have been doing a lot of, not just what the media is saying, but really getting into the facts and making thoughtful decisions. I watched a a comedy special this week, Mark Maron, watching a lot of comedy specials lately. And he said that so much of one's belief system is based on, oh yeah, a guy told me. And that stuck with me.
Yeah.
What do you know about that? Oh yeah, some guy told me.
Yeah, so I think that's an important piece how are you getting your news? Where are you getting it? I recommend people go to the CDC or the World Health Organization, and avoid headlines like, do I have them somewhere? Avoid the sensational headlines that just can take things out of context. So yes, getting the facts, I think, is important, and facts in a context.
And then how do you digest those facts and then convey them to a child at an age-appropriate level?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's always possible. I think at any age. One time in session, I had a conversation with a family who had, they were talking about that their son, who's like 9 years old, doesn't know anything about sex. He has no information about it. And in this day and age, I was frankly a little bit surprised, and probably thinking that they weren't accurate about that.
Probably.
But I mean, I grew up well before the internet, and I had some bad ideas about sex by the time I was 9. But it made me reflect that I started talking to my kids about sex. They never didn't know. Like, but I, of course, spoke about it in different ways, at different levels, with different language throughout their growing up years. And so the same would be true in talking to them about an illness that is for them probably going to be, for them individually, probably not a big deal at all if they are even afflicted, but has the possibility of that there's a big uncertainty there. And how to, how to reach a child at their level, not raise their anxiety about it. Of course, number one is, how anxiously am I talking about it?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing right there. Your message, your tone is your message. But I thought too, as I was thinking about this earlier today, which I didn't share with you earlier, there's all this uncertainty, which is very unnerving. And I thought a helpful thing to focus on might be, what do we know? We do know that washing hands is very helpful. We do know that if somebody in your family has a fever, you're going to call the doctor. We do know that if somebody gets sick, we're going to take it one day at a time. Things like that I think could help as well in talking with children. What do we know? Here's what we don't. Here's what we do. I don't know. What do you think, Laura?
Yeah. Yes, of course. And it's funny when you say hand washing is a good thing, as always.
It's nothing new here. Right.
Nothing new. I mean, a little longer, a little more frequent, a little more conscientious. But there was something else that occurred to me. Oh, talking to the kids is one thing. Talking around the kids is a whole other thing. Everybody's in their houses right now, or at least much more so than usual. And kids overhear other conversations. Perhaps those conversations are more influential than talking directly to the kids.
Interesting.
How do I talk to my, she'd kill me if she heard this, 80-plus-year-old mother
yes,
about this? I don't have a young child anymore. I'd be more likely to have a grandchild. But if a child can overhear that conversation, what are they taking from that? So it's not just how one talks to kids and then go freak out somewhere else.
Yeah, and that brings me to, can you go like a few minutes over? Can we go to 5 after?
Yeah.
Okay. I've got to leave and get my husband from the airport. So, but that brings me to sort of the last thing to talk about that we wanted to talk about is how each of us are reacting differently, and that the conversations that you might be having with your spouse, I mean, I'm pretty reactive to my husband right now because I feel, is overreacting. And like we were saying earlier, right? I'm upset that people are overreacting. And so that kind of conversation, but you and I were talking about how you're upset about people underreacting. I just thought that was so interesting. And what did that have to do with us individually, with my upbringing and your upbringing and how our families define crises and so forth?
So when you said I'm reactive to my husband because I think he's overreacting, I guess I would look at it a little differently.
Yeah, please. That's why I want to have this discussion. I need help.
The sensitivity to the other comes from simply the transfer of anxiety, that fight or flight response that you said, more contagious than a virus and is being spread around the family. But then the content, the reason or rationale, I'm annoyed with him because, that's the piece that would come out of perhaps the family history. You said that your perception is that you come from a family of overreactors.
Overfunctioners.
And
we have the overfunctioners are never without their handy underfunctioner. In the overfunctioning role. Let's keep calm. Let's get a plan. Let's whatever. Usually actually an overfunctioner in his family. But that's shifting. That's a little bit different with he and I right now. But I appreciate your differentiating the definition there. It's instead of getting lost in the content of here's why you're wrong, David. It's here's this process between us. Here's the spread of anxiety between us. I know that I'm going to be overdoing it, and I know what I do to people who I feel are underfunctioning, or anybody. I've told my clients for a long time, I know how to put my spouse in his place.
Does he
stay there? I have a license to do it. The therapist.
Does he stay in his place?
I've never gotten him there.
See, you don't really know how to put him in his place.
Well, I can make him feel bad, put it that way. And it's not productive.
I hear you. Well, a great example of that is if I have a long day at work, a hard day at work, I come home and I'm immediately going to be critical of my husband for where he left this or what lights are on or whatever. And I can think that I can actually believe that that's why I'm aggravated. But it more accurately, I've been loaded up with anxiety. I come home and I'm looking for a target.
I hear you.
So a better question, rather than, what's my beef with him, is what's the beef? Why now? Why now?
Okay.
What's the context? And of course, the same thing, again, families are home with their kids. Their kids aren't at school. People aren't getting the break from all that togetherness that they're used to. So there's probably more tension in a lot of families, and irritability. And how does that inform kids' experience of this time in their lives? Perhaps they're going to end up really begging to go back to school. That would be neat.
Yeah, that's going to happen. It might for sure. Depends on how long this goes.
Get me out of here.
Yeah. I mean, if nothing else, there's no ban on going outside in your backyard. And that actually has been very therapeutic for me. We've had some really nice weather out here in Colorado the last few days, and we've had a fire out on the patio, and seeing the big sky and the big mountains in the distance. And I mean, I think that togetherness piece it really is, in the popular culture, lauded as everything. It's all about being together and connected and all this stuff. And in Bowen family systems theory, we take a different look. We look at the balance of togetherness and separateness, and that balance is a key component to success, I'll say. So if you
I
can
think
get outside for a walk, take a walk around the block. Go ahead, Lorna.
Well, it's been raining here in San Diego, which sort of adds insult to injury. But you're making a really good point, because I think perhaps a lot of families, the parents have an idea of, oh, this is such a wonderful time for togetherness. We'll play board games. We'll homeschool. We'll have great conversations, TV time, and perhaps neglecting each individual's need to be separate.
Mm.
Now it can go the other way too. Families could disperse and not take advantage of a time for a more intimate and open and authentic exchange of thoughts and feelings. But both need to be honored and respected, all the way from infants who need individuality also.
Yes, they do.
All the way up to adolescents who one might think only want individuality, but they still are struggling or whatever with both.
So some final thoughts, I guess, then. Do you have any ideas? So if somebody is in a family where it's more of that, everybody's in their room, how might they think about moving towards it or taking advantage of an opportunity for something to do together? And then the opposite, when everybody's together and we can't get apart, how might they think about taking some time, some individual? I don't know. What are your thoughts, Lorna?
So I think that making a point of one-to-one interactions is very useful. In some ways, more useful than getting the whole group together. So if a parent has a bunch of kids or whatever in their separate rooms with their earphones on and their faces in their screens or computer games, go in and initiate a one-to-one interaction, ask somebody to take a walk rather than insisting everybody go. There's a time and place for that, but also really using the opportunity for these more intimate and valuable one-to-one interactions.
Yeah.
I think another thing that is very helpful is making good contact with extended family by phone, by video, that is an energy resource that's very valuable at this time.
One that conventional thinking really poo-poos and overlooks and all that. And of course, people's experiences can be difficult with families, but
no better time to work on it.
Huh?
No better time to work on it.
Yeah, right. A profound idea, but a complex one for sure. So if you are listening to this and you are in the Neurofeedback Moms group, I do have a special right now on rentals, so you can do your neurofeedback in home. So if you're not in the Moms group, join the group and you can take advantage of that special. So thanks so much, Lorna, for being with me again today, and stay well.
Thank you, and you.
Thank you.